Okay, I went ahead and I had already done the video for the next, for the rest of the movie of Lord of the Rings, the notes that I put for that, for the rest of the movie. So I already did the video on that, but I didn't realize I completely skipped a scene. And so it's actually the very next scene for part 3, because I've already done part 1, part 2. So where I have left off, this is the next scene, which I had completely skipped in the video that I'm going to post right after this. So I guess this is like, yeah, just gonna be short. So this is the one scene that's right after the part where Frodo and Sam get captured by Boromir's brother, and then we get to the scene, which is the part that I missed, which is with Rohan traveling to Helm's Deep, and you have Alwyn and Aragorn have a conversation, and you can tell that Alwyn's kind of got a crush on Aragorn, right? Of course, considering her situation. But Aragorn, she asks him something about that jewel on his chest. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. First, the scene starts with them walking, and then they stay somewhere, and he falls asleep, right? And he is with Arwen. He's with Arwen, and he's like, this is just a dream, right? Because he's asleep. But again, let me just explain the scene. So he's with her, and then in the conversation, he's like, you told me once this day would come. Or she said that, I don't know. But then she says, this is not the end, but the beginning. You must go with Frodo. That is your path. And he's like, my path is hidden from me. But she says, the path is already before you. If you trust anything, trust your heart. And then the next day, he's walking with the jewel on his chest. And then Alwyn asks, where is the woman that gave you that jewel? And then he tells her she is sailing away with the elf kind to leave the grief of Middle-earth. He remembers him breaking up with Arwen and gives back the jewel, but she says it was a gift and tells him to keep it. Okay, so that's I don't know how, but I completely missed that scene. So anyways, what can we get from this? So it's a test of love, right? And this kind of makes you think of in Corinthians, it talks about how love bears all things, hopes all things, believes all things. Their situation was a very impossible situation, right? Two different kinds of people, very different. He was a man, she was an elf, right? Some big hurdles. It wasn't just it wasn't a little thing. They had pretty much everything in the world stacked against them from being able to be together, right? But there are these green flags here that show that this was really the right connection, right? What do you see? How do you see that? Well, first you see the sacrifice, right? And another analogy here is is Jesus. You kind of see Jesus in this, right? Because she gives him these promises about giving up her immortality, right? That kind of sacrifice, being willing to die for love, right? So you have that. Yeah. And then in the dream, and again, with these dreams, it's like, so he first has a dream about kind of talking with her again, and then later he remembers what had actually happened, right? But the thing is, we walk in the Spirit, right? We walk in the Spirit, so we need to pay attention to our dreams. We need to pay attention to our dreams. The Lord speaks, right? Also in the body, like, we are connected, and so the Lord can give you understanding and give you insight into what other people are dealing with, and being able to like the Lord can speak to you about other people in your dreams. So all those things, right? There are spiritual connections that we can have with people. But anyways, godly connections. Okay. Ones that God made, right? Like what God joined together, let no man separate. Nothing. So anyways, so they're in the dream, and she says, this is not the end, but the beginning, right? So look at this. Look at this. You see selflessness, right? She's not saying, oh, let's run away together, right? Let's forget about everybody. No, she says, you must go with Frodo. She didn't say you must go with me. You must go with Frodo. Like, that is your path, right? And then she's encouraging him. She's being selfless, and she's encouraging, and she knows what his destiny is. She knows what his calling is, right? So that is love right there, okay? That is green flag, green light, green everything, right? And then, if you trust anything, trust your heart. Okay, don't do that. If anything, trust God's heart. Trust God's heart and let him lead your heart, because out of the heart flows all kinds of evil, right? But the thing is, sometimes we get that gut feeling and it really is the Lord, but then we say it's my heart, but it's actually the Lord doing that, pushing you, because you'll have like, even if it's something that you don't want to do, you'll have like a peace about it, right? Maybe not initially, but then when you step in faith, then you kind of have a peace about it, right? So it's all about that, really, your relationship with the Lord, because you can have there can be other things spiritually trying to pull at you and tug at you and make you uncomfortable, right? Especially if it's something that you like, you can feel the warfare amp up if you need to be somewhere or do something, right? And then like everything falls apart, and then you just have like no interest in, right? That happens. And it's very hard to push past that. And so it just comes to that surrender, right? It comes to carrying that cross to be able to do it, right? So, so trust God's heart. Trust God. And the more you following him, the more your heart becomes like his, and the more it becomes like second nature in it. And when you're saying your heart, you're really talking about God's heart, because you're just becoming one with the Lord, right? That's where it is. But anyways, so when he has a jewel in his chest, and Alwyn asks about the woman who gave him that jewel, right? Again, that is her like being, because she already knew. She already knew. Okay, right? That man's taken, right? That man's likely very much taken. But she could tell that he really loved her. So, and then the situation about them, her leaving, right? And all that. But they were still connected. They still loved each other, right? And they still, he didn't just throw himself on Alwyn, right? Even though, like I said, their names are similar. That's not a coincidence. It's like, he didn't just do that, right? And that was a test of love. That was proving that it was true. And, love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things. Love never fails. So again, it comes down to what God is behind. And if God is behind it, right, there's nothing to really be worried about in that sense. It's just like always hold on to hope, right? Always hold on to hope. Is that all I needed to say? Yeah. Anyways, that was a really beautiful scene of love and sacrifice, and and waiting, right? And waiting, being willing to wait, being willing to be patient, being willing to stick it out, right? Being willing to stick it out even when there's like hard stuff that you have to go through before fulfillment, right? Before that, in recognizing what is now, what is for today, right? So you can get to a new place, so you can get to what the Lord has for you, right? And then just, knowing your path, and and even though their paths parted, right, later on you see it comes back together. So that's all I have to say.